As we move forward with our opening session, we are thrilled to share a few things. In 2024, when we started our first media partnership with Forbes, with Business Insider, even from the sidelines, we were making history. We were headlining. And, and most importantly, we hit the record number of guests and speakers joined the World Woman Davos Agenda, which was about 1,100 delegates. And as we move to 2025, we still continue our media partnership with Forbes, with Business Insider, Equal Voice, Axel Springer, and various others. With these media partnerships, we are amplifying the voices, not only in this room, but with our virtual audience, which is reaching about 1.2 million audience in next 2 days. And it is with my immense pleasure I want to start the opening session, Women Leading the Intelligent Age, led by none other than the voice in the media, which you cannot ignore, but she is a powerful voice, Miss Moira Forbes, the Executive Vice President of Forbes. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Yes.
Thank you. I would love to have my panelists come join me on stage for this opening conversation. So welcome, everybody. Yes, it were. Well, I feel like this is such an exciting and wonderful way to start the day's conversations as we talk about what are the most important drivers to accelerate change and create greater equity in our industries. And today we're speaking with three leaders who are championing change in very different arenas. We're going to talk about their insights around where they see opportunities moving forward, some of the lessons learned around how they've activated impact at scale, and what are the ways in which we can take those insights into our own world. So thank you so much for joining me today. To my left, I have Seema Ved, who's founder and chairwoman of the Apparel Group. To her left is Dr. Precious Malloy Motsepe, Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, among many, many other wonderful things in her title. And at the far left is Bhumi Tendulkar, celebrated actor and climate activist. So ladies, thank you so much. Seema, I'll start with you because we're talking about throughout the World Economic Forum, the leadership challenge. And while we recognize that we still have a very long way to go, we're here today to look at opportunities to drive progress. With the Apparel Group, you have extraordinary reach across a number of different industries, countries, and the like. Can you talk about how you've seen the evolution in terms of advancing talent in the organization that you've built, but also given the collective network that you work with today?
Thank you, Moira, and thank you, Rupa, for this opportunity. Again, it's an absolute honor to be here for the second time. I wouldn't have discovered Davos had it not been for Rupa Dash, so thank you for that. Moira, to your question, when I started off, my boardroom looked like I think there were about 18 men, all of the same race, primarily, and that was it. So when I walked in, I was like, that's interesting, because I'd been vice chair of the company for a while, since 1996, but I'd never taken the helm till my husband stepped away in 2021. And that's when I looked at it and I said, if our leadership has to reflect what we're going to go towards, there's got to be a change. So I was, of course, the first change, and then after me, subsequently, like Maria just said, it's upon us to actually take the action and say, we need to figure out what's stopping hiring efficient, effective women in leadership positions. So for me, Apparel Group, we're fortunate, is in 14 countries. 7 of them are the GCC, and there we have seen the biggest change. I mean, the UAE workforce has 42% women. That's higher than any other country in the region. And I just think it says a lot for where we're headed. However, leadership positions are still very few and scarce. So that's where I think we need to make way more strides. My network allows me to push the agenda. It allows me to create uncomfortable conversations at the board level to say, why didn't we hire a woman here at this position instead of this man? And it's got them thinking as well, because at the end of the day, they are men, but they're also fathers. They have daughters, they have sisters. So why would they not want to tap into, like Maria said again, the pool or the talent pool that is stopping us from adding $28 trillion to the global economy? The numbers speak for themselves.
And I would imagine, as we're all looking at industries today and working in such a global and competitive marketplace, the idea that we're not tapping into some of the most valuable talent pools is a real challenge of the workforce of the future. Precious, I've always admired your career because you're a trained medical doctor specializing in children and women's health. You're a philanthropist. As I said, you're a chancellor of the University of Cape Town, the founder of African Fashion International. You sit at a really powerful and unique intersection of industries. Can you just share some of your viewpoints in terms of how you've seen these different industries connecting, but also the evolution in your career and where you see you can be a catalyst of opportunity?
Thank you, Moira, and it's very good to see you. You do amazing work with International Women's Day, and thank you, Rupa, also for this meeting. This is fantastic. It's great to see so many men in this audience. Welcome. Moira, you're right. I have gone into different sectors. I come from South Africa. I was educated during an era in South Africa when we had the apartheid policies, and opportunities for young girls were not so many. I was lucky to be trained as a medical doctor, and when I finished medicine, I went into women's health. I finished medicine, and my intention was exactly what Rupa said, to try and pay it forward. So my initial goal was to ensure that we have more young people, in particular women, get education, high quality education, but coupled with economic opportunities. It's not good just to educate, we also have to provide economic opportunities. How do we do that? Through my family foundation, we support young students, and in particular, again, girls, to follow through STEM programs. We take them through universities, make sure that they are in jobs that are required in the industry. We also ensure that we don't leave the cultural industry behind. And that is why I support fashion on the African continent through African Fashion International. We take young people who are just fashion graduates, some of them. We ensure that they understand the business side of the fashion industry, and we give them the language, we give them the tools to make sure that they can meet up with investors and be able to get the support that they need. So I'm really lucky in that in my life I've been able to bring a mix of various industries together, and somehow I've been able to leverage each one of them to bring up women in those specific sectors.
You bring up a great point, though, in terms of you can't necessarily address one specific point exclusively in terms of where we're having the greatest challenges or friction points, and the ways in which you recognize creating not just education, but talent pools and the types of pipelines to ensure that this great talent can really thrive in the workforce of the future. Bumi, your platform is so interesting in the context of this conversation because you're someone who's become a very, very powerful climate activist. Yes. You're someone who has also been a great champion for women and young girls and has really become a mentor and a role model to so many. Can you talk about how you see the evolution of your platform and your work as an opportunity to be a catalyst for change?
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Moira. Thank you, Rupa. I'm very, very, I'm full of gratitude that I'm in this room, a room full of such phenomenal women. So I started my platform, Climate Warrior, in 2019. And at that point, the whole climate conversation was something that never happened. I was constantly made fun of. I felt very alone, very lonely. And I've had many of those moments just because being a woman in the times that we live in, you need to find your allies. You need to find a group of people that you can fall back on and people that understand you. My platform gave me an opportunity to create a cohort of people that understand what I stand for, and I think I empowered them as well. And I think I'll complete 10 years as an actor, and over those 10 years, I have tried my level best to challenge the status quo. My films make people very uncomfortable. In a country that I come from, I've played a queer character. I was completely pushed in a corner when I did that, but I didn't care. I have played a character, I've done a film on sexual liberation. I was slurred away, but I didn't care. I have played, my first film was a film on body positivity, inclusivity, and I was to gain 40 kilos for the film. Now, I'm not blowing my trumpet. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because as an actor, I have soft power in my country. I have a large platform. And if I don't use my art to create positive change, then what's the point? Because the world that we are living in, the times that we are in, we need people in places of power to constantly be speaking about a fight together. And as you rightly said, it's so refreshing to see these many men in the audience, because your fight for equality is not specific to our gender or anybody that identifies with our gender. How can we disassociate half of our population and yet want the kind of advancement that we want? I mean, it's just a conversation, and it's just something that I don't get. So again, I'm very, very fortunate that I have this large platform, and I really hope that through years and through the work that I do, I just keep strengthening this beautiful community that I've created.
And I will say the body of your work is remarkable in the sense that you really have used the power of narratives and reshaping the types of conversations and stories that we've seen, particularly in your country, and the ability to then couple that with action across a multitude of arenas is not something that's very easy to do. As you said, it can be lonely. Seema, you mentioned earlier when we started, you start to have uncomfortable conversations, and I think we all know to be change agents, you need to push. You sometimes need to have a strong voice. You need to figure out how to bring people along, but that's easier said than done. How have you learned to have conversations where you can push and move people forward, but you're also meeting them where they are so that they don't turn off, that they can really hear you and be a partner with you?
I mean, before I dive into that one, can I just say something to Bhumi? Bhumi, why not blow your trumpet?
I agree. Absolutely.
I just think that's the biggest thing, right? As women, we're told, oh, she's not modest. I don't want to be modest. Absolutely. I don't want to be humble. Why should I? When has Elon Musk ever been modest or humble? SpaceX just blew up and he's okay with it. So why shouldn't you blow your trumpet?
Absolutely, because we're also conditioned, right? We are conditioned not to celebrate our ambition. We are conditioned not to have dreams and desires, and if you do, you're opinionated. I've been told that so many times, that I've been in a room full of people and I'm like, no, but I think we should speak about this. No, that's not important. I'm like, then why am I here? It's okay, I don't need your room, I'll make my own, right?
I think I have a decade on you, and the labels I must have got in the organization. She's only pushing the female agenda. She only wants women with her. That's not true. Of course, I want to hire people based on merit, but I do want to evaluate and see, because at the end of the day, in my sector, the decision making for purchasing shoes, clothes, F&B, etc., 75 to 80% of those decisions are driven by women. Why do I not have enough of that contingency in my organization to reflect and tell me what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong? My biggest statement used to be, you hire me a brand manager for, let's say, one of our legacy brands, Aldo, can he try on the stilettos and tell me if it's comfortable or not? He can't.
Definitely not comfortable.
So why, so why do I have brand managers who are men but trying to sell to women? Yes, there's something to be said for operations at times in my region. Yes, maybe a woman is uncomfortable going at 2 a.m. to check on a store, whether how far along is it for opening, etc. But those are conversations we can have. We can create a dual team that does what is best for the company as well as the brand. I just think, kind of blanketing it, like you said, and saying, no, let's just hire someone who's easier is not the conversation we should be having at this point, especially if we want to make more money. Yeah. It's really about making more money. And I think when I started and they started seeing the actual impact of what the decisions were leading to on the bottom line, then the conversations got easier. And then it just became about, okay, let's choose the best talent based on merit, not on gender, either way.
And it's really, to your point also, how do we build the best teams of the future? So it's beyond gender. How are you in a room where they're not people who think or look like you? You make the best decisions when you have that expansive set of perspectives in the room, which obviously you have embraced so much and is a testament to the success of your organization. Precious, I would imagine you've been in rooms oftentimes where you are the only, or you are the voice pushing for the type of change that others may not see, or they always see a woman trying to push for. Can you share some of the uncomfortable conversations or how you've learned to bring these things to the forefront in a way that's been meaningful, maybe in a way where there's an insight others can take around how they can bring this to their own work?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So I have 2 examples I can share with you, and maybe 3. And I want to say the discussion we're having now around saying exactly who you are, talking about those difficult conversations, should not start here. Those conversations need to start in our homes. They need to start in schools. We move on to workplaces, and they then penetrate in society. So it's a continuous conversation. And I'll give you an example. When I opened a women's clinic in South Africa, it was focusing on women's health, and I was unapologetic about it. But I was challenged by my son, who was then 5 years old, only 5 years old, and he says to me, "But Mom, why are you just treating women? What about me? What about Dad?" And I said to him, "Look, my boy, when you focus on women, you make sure that they are going to have a healthy child, their family is going to be healthy, and that extends into the community, and before we know it, it's extending into society." 30 years later, my son is championing women's football in South Africa. Children watch what we do. We may say this, but it's what we do that matters. My son, it sank in back then, and he's now driving change in sports, okay? The other example is when in South Africa, our women's football team were qualified to play at the World Cup, and they couldn't go. They put up a protest. They refused to go because they were being paid less than the men's team. They were going to the World Cup, and our men's football team hadn't been to the World Cup in years. These were champions, and yet they were being treated unfairly. There was a need for funding. The government couldn't put it up. We came in through our family foundation. We put up the funding. But I saw an opportunity to use that to talk about unequal pay in sports, but in society in general. We put together stakeholders from government to people in football, businesses, and we talked about this. And it mattered because they had been put on the spot. And now, all of a sudden, we had a collaboration around an issue that is very difficult to talk about in boardrooms. We had an example, and I said to them, it's not enough that we pay lip service to gender equality. Let's do it. So those are 2 examples that I have. Yeah.
Which is wonderful, and I think you make such good points in terms of with boys and young men around us. They are watching, and I don't think any of us can undervalue what those small moments day in and day out, whether it be in our homes or the workforce, can mean over time in terms of compounding change. But you also talk about the need to bring stakeholders together from different arenas to be able to create change at scale. But that's something you've done in a multitude of arenas, media and entertainment, but also leveraging strategic partnerships, working with organizations and brands around the world toward these higher goals. What have you learned about what it takes to create a successful partnership, and how do you ensure that those that you work with, as Precious said, it's not just a lip service, but they are really joining you to be able to create something actionable and meaningful?
So I'll answer your question in two parts. Because I'm an actor, there are a lot of brands that I might be associated with. At the start of my career, the teams that I worked with, they found it rather bizarre that I would say no to money. And I said no to money because I did not resonate with the ethos of that brand. If I have an audience that aspires to be me, they have to believe in everything that I stand for. So I think for me, my journey kind of began there. The fact that I could say no to that check meant that, okay, I'm being true to what I want to see in the world, the change that I want to see in the world. And then it just comes down to finding people that you connect with, that fight for the cause. And I also feel like, for example, there are most of my brands, I do put in a clause that there is a certain amount of CSR work that you will do towards the foundations that I'm associated with. And this is not my personal foundation. For example, I'm associated with a tribal school in India. It's in a very, very remote village. I met them because I was shooting in that area. And the first time I entered that school, I could not believe what I was seeing. Because there were about 350 students, rescued children. They were vulnerable to human trafficking, or they had a parent that was a part of the system, and the chances were very high that they would be pushed in the system as well, or the boys would be pushed into just being robbery or dacoits. I mean, that area is known for the dacoits. And I went in and I realized that they don't even have access to any basics, right? So because when they saw me, they saw a mobile and they were like, oh my God, what is this? And I was like, wow, here is a world that has no idea about what's happening. Right to education, right to good nutrition is something basic that we can do for a child. And I took it upon myself. I've never really managed to bring reform of this level. And there are only 350 kids, but today our children can speak French, they code, and most of it has happened because of the right partnerships that we found for the organization. And it's only about having intent. I was alone and I went out there and I was like, okay, now what can I do for this organization? How do I empower these children? And for me, a very small win, actually it's not a small win, it's a very, very, very big win for me, is that one of our girls, and she was in class 7 in 2017, she actually, and again, I have to tell you, I'm speaking of a place where none of the teachers showed up because they were not paid in time, right? And you can't really blame them, it's just the ecosystem. They just don't have enough, right? One of our girls, she actually got into one of the biggest law universities in India by giving a competitive exam. Now that's a big win. She, in turn, is going to change her ecosystem. She is going to go push harder for this organization. She is going to go help educate more people, right? So it is only about getting the right partnerships. And I felt that across my work, be it for gender equality, equity, climate, you have to find the right people because yes, this can be a solo journey, but you'll only create larger impact when you meet people that believe in the cause.
I think it's so important what you say in terms of having that authenticity. And I will say in an industry like yours, it can be very hard to say no to types of check sizes in an industry where you're only as good as sort of the last success that you had. And the ability to stay true to that is really significant.
Absolutely. I'm also just going to add another point here, right? Like as an actor, apart from the brands, the films that you associate yourself with. And I use every platform that I can to kind of give out this message, because if you have, again, if you have soft power, you have to use it well, right? So there have been so many times that I've been asked to do a pot boiler film that I know will make insane amounts of money, but my character has no agency. And I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna play a single character where I am misrepresented or where our gender is misrepresented. And it's tough, but I've been true to it so far.
Yes, and over time, I think that's really what builds a great brand and reputation, and the ability to attract great partners as well. Seema, turning to your work in the world of business, can you talk about one change where you've used either your hard or your soft power that feels like there's opportunities to others can learn from, that they can bring into their own arenas, or an area where you've pushed for change that you learned something about opportunities moving forward?
So there's so many, right? Like, I live in a city where I think the parliament has way more female representation than the UK does. And to me, to have a leadership of the country sort of place the stage where every woman is told that you are as powerful as the next man next to you, I think that plays into any company that stems out of Dubai. So for us as a company, apart from the fact that, you know, we recently had to hire, meaning they have this agenda where they want to push their nationals, because their nationals are 10% of the population at the moment. So they want us to emiratize a few of our companies. And we hired 90% Emirati women. To me, it's not just that we hired, the fact that they're coming out of their homes and saying, hire us, we're ready to work, we're ready to do this, we're ready to be a part of society, we're ready to contribute to what the economy is building. So I think as a chairperson, as a founder of the company, I make it my mission to listen to everyone. I have to, whether it's my CEO who's in the room, my CBO, or like our CEO of the India brand as well. When they talk, we have to listen, but it helps to spin it and say, well, how much have you made thanks to this woman now joining your team? Or how has it impacted business with this woman joining your team? So I think the changes that I'm trying to make are to say, if we want to be accelerated, sustainable for the next coming decade, we're going to have to not just adopt AI, we're going to have to not just adopt technology, but we're also going to have to adopt the fact that a massive quotient of our workforce, which is 24,000 people, has to become women. And like I said, when purchase decisions are made by that gender, who are we to say you can't be at the leadership position to influence the way we work?
And oftentimes that change, though, is driven at the top of an organization or from the bottom rising up, with the word booming that you used earlier, intention. I think all of us have so many more opportunities and touch points in our lives that we may not necessarily appreciate, but if we look at the world through that very focused lens and have that intention around better leveraging each moment, it is extraordinary how much opportunity there is than we may initially see. Precious, I'll ask you, what's been the most surprising lessons you've learned on what it takes to drive change at scale or to bring people along behind your vision? And can you share what was the catalyst for that?
There's been many surprises, but I think one of the biggest surprises has been how difficult it just is. You know, I thought you have the platform, you have the resources, you have the networks, you can do it. It's not easy. It's very, very challenging, and we dare not give up. What we do at our family foundation and what I do at universities or in the business that I run, Number one, I'm always looking for, as you correctly said, people who can potentially be collaborators. We did amazing work in Abu Dhabi together with yourselves, Forbes, in bringing women together to listen at sessions like this, but we incorporated fashion. We had a fashion show at that event. That would be fantastic to do. It just brings us as women together, but it also shows that we have the power to create our own economies. The other way that we do this, I already mentioned how we push young girls in STEM fields and in the jobs of tomorrow. I'm a chancellor of a university, and I can tell you one of my proudest moments is sitting during graduations and counting how many girls are coming through, graduating in astrophysics, physics, actuarial sciences. It just makes me so happy. We are seeing the change at that level. Where are the challenges? In keeping those young girls who graduate at universities through the pipeline. And what do? We make sure that after young women graduate, we place them in jobs where they can receive mentorship, internship, where they can become, understudies. My husband runs a mining company in South Africa. We make sure that young girls who come through as engineers get internships in companies like our mining company. We put them in our football teams. We put them in the fashion industry where I work to make sure that they can learn from others, they can be mentored. I think that's very, very important, the mentorship side of things. We also do things like matching companies with, we have huge unemployment in South Africa, and I'm hopeful that we're going to tackle it. But most of our unemployed young people are graduates. So we make sure that I call CEOs of some of the big companies in South Africa, in the finance sector, in mining, and we put them together with young people who have no jobs but have degrees. And that interaction, that platform, helps young people understand what industry requires of them, and it also helps CEOs to realize that they have a duty to make sure that young people are onboarded through their companies. And it's not really about fairness when we train young women. As Ruta said, it's about creating economic opportunities that benefit all of us, half the world. So I mean, sometimes it looks like it's never going to get done, but as Nelson Mandela famously said, it never seems possible until it gets done. Yeah. And we can do this.
Very, very much so. We started the conversation, Sima, when you said we have to have uncomfortable conversations. And I think whenever you are driving change, it is never easy. You have to bring people along. But there's also a lot of criticism, a lot of skeptics, and people who often will work against you in terms of moving things forward. Bumi, I'll ask you, because you're working in an industry where you're already under a very intense spotlight, where anything in your career is scrutinized at a level that's very unique, but also when you do try and push and move things forward. What have you learned, and what advice would you give to others around when to listen to the voices around you, and how best to block out that noise that sometimes can be so damaging when we're trying to work towards something bigger?
I feel women in general are boxed, right? You're only supposed to be this person. And if you want to transition into being something else, it scares people. I've often noticed that why is society scared of a happy girl? They are so petrified of somebody who's on a path of just, being happy. It is because they know she's going to do something disruptive. And she's gonna break every shackle and every tag and every boundary that you've created around her. And I've gone through this experience many times, and mostly because of the films that I've been a part of. I love fashion. I enjoy it, right? But I'm just about to start my first venture with my sister. She's my co-founder, and it's just her and I. And it's been a very, very interesting journey because as an actor, I did face I did face casual sexism. That would have come out wrong. But I did not realize how deep it was until I went on to the world of business. I'm just gonna say it in the simplest way, right? Because here I was starting my venture, and I was sitting in front of men, and I think they were always expecting a man to come represent us. And I was like, why? I am giving you my order. I will be giving you that money. So why are you expecting somebody else? They just questioned my intelligence. And I was like, okay, I'm again going to change the room that I'm going to be in. And I started just working with more women. It's been tough because I've not found a lot of allies yet, especially in the world of FMCG. I think it's not as much. But I was like, I'm not going to let you box me. And because I like wearing good clothes, I like wearing makeup, you think that I'm not as smart as you, that's your problem, not mine. I'm not gonna stop dressing up because this gives me joy, right? And I'm just coming back to your question, which is that I think the one thing that I would tell people and young girls is that there are constantly people are gonna tell you no, you can't do it. I don't come from a film family, and that's general practice in my country, where it is a little legacy led, and it's fine. I feel like you have to create your own opportunity, as I did, and but I was constantly told, how are you gonna be an actor with the way you look? I'm like, because I did not meet any beauty standard. I did not see the representation while I was growing up, because all those beautiful, they were so beautiful, right? But the world was different then. And the world is different today. The fact that my first film was about an overweight bride whose husband didn't love her because of her size, and then she literally tells him, leave. And that created waves, right? And the thing is, you will constantly be told you can't do it, but you have to find that voice within yourself. You have to find the right opportunities. I'm a hustler. Hustle. It's okay. You have to hustle your way up. If you find an opportunity that's probably a couple of degrees away from the path that you want, grab it, because eventually you'll come onto that path. So just find that confidence within yourself. And it's easier said than done, because I come from a lot of privilege. The privilege of education, the privilege of the fact that I was never told that you're a girl, so you're lesser. That's privilege. And a lot of people might not have an environment like so. So it might be tough, but then I really hope that you find an ally that holds your hand through this journey.
I think all of you shared extraordinary advice in this, the importance of having allies and the importance of finding the courage and the support network. But also, as you said, when people see happy women, they may be overwhelmed and intimidated because it means change. And looking out in this room, your advice and your insights from the three of you have created a very happy and engaged room. So thank you so much for all that you've shared. The work that you've done is remarkable, and again, in very different arenas, but a reminder of all the different touch points that we have in the work that we do to be forces of good in the future. So ladies, thank you so much for what you do and the insights you shared, and thank you, Rupa, for having us.
Thank you, Moira. Thank you, Rupa.